Well, this morning, the U.S. is under its first federal government shutdown in nearly 7 years. Last night, a GOP-backed Senate measure fell short of the 60 votes it needed to end the filibuster. Republicans wanting to pass what was a 7-week extension that kept the government running at current levels. Democrats, though, holding back. They want health care subsidies that are set to expire at the end of the year to be brought back. Both sides, as you can imagine, pointing the finger about who is responsible for the shutdown. A Republican Congressman, Mike Haridopolos, joining us live from Washington. The lights are still on there in that part. Congressman, good to see you this morning.
Good morning, Ryan.
So not unexpected. I mean, this was coming down yesterday. It was clear that this probably was going to happen. As you know, the last shutdown was 35 days. Hopefully this doesn't last as long. But what's your reaction this morning?
Well, it is disappointing, Ryan. As you know, last week in the House of Representatives, we voted to keep the government open. It's a common sense thing to do. We're happy to negotiate long term with the Democrats, but in the meantime, let's not shut the government down, especially when we have some good economic news with 3.8% increase in our economy. Of course, right now, gas prices are down, inflation is finally flat, and of course, the stock market is at record levels. And so we're cautiously optimistic. As you mentioned, 3 Democrats actually voted with Republicans last night to keep the government open. We're about 4 or 5 votes short now of keeping it open, and we hope that Chuck Schumer, the leader of the Democrats in the Senate, will go back to his historic position, which is keep the government open, never shut it down, because it doesn't benefit anyone in any way possible.
No, and as you know, Senator Schumer was in that meeting in the Oval Office where Democrats made it clear they want any stopgap funding to include health care, an extension of the Obamacare tax credits. But you also know both sides pretty firm in their position on this. So what would it take to get a deal and get that number up to 60?
Well, I think that the issue is going to be something we debate over the next few weeks, because, again, these changes won't take place until next year. Until then, we should keep the government open. And, again, why would you negotiate a huge issue like that for just a short-term solution on keeping the government open for 7 weeks? Again, all we're asking the Democrats to do is be consistent. They've always said that shutting down the government's a bad idea. Why would they think it's a good idea now? And as far as these health care issues, let's be sure about the health care issue. There are some cases where, example, in Arizona, a family of 4 making $600,000 would actually get subsidies from the federal government for health insurance. That's not logical. Or in Vermont, $180,000 for a single individual getting subsidies for the government. That's not logical to me. There's a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse in the system. So let's clean up some of the problems in that system and find ways to help people afford health care, especially with the failure that's been taking place over the last 4 years with higher prices.
I watched 2 leaders yesterday have very different, one a Republican, one a Democrat, very different thoughts on would this include health care for illegals. Is that a factor here in getting this deal done, Mike?
Well, look, I know the Democrats say it doesn't exist, but if you ask the governor of New York, you ask the governor of California, both Democrats, they admit that they provide health care, free health care, for illegal aliens. We think that's a bad idea. But really what this comes down to is the common sense way in which we operate a government. We should keep the government open, and we should continue to look for ways to reduce waste and fraud. We know that these DOJ numbers have now come in. There's more transparency in the government, and we want to get rid of that, because every tax dollar that's wasted there is a tax dollar that doesn't go back into a hardworking American's pocket. And so we're trying to find that right balance. But again, let's look at the big picture here. We're on a roll economically. We're finally getting out of that rut after 4 years of higher prices. Why would we want to shut down the government and put some people in a precarious position? But let me say one more thing, Ryan. Our office is still open. So if you call our office 632-1776, we still handle casework. And this year we've returned over $6.4 million to people in the communities that I represent in Congress, because those people who have VA benefits or Social Security benefits, they deserve to get the service they deserve.
I want to finish with this, too. It's good to hear the office is still open. Talk about those essential workers. I mean, as we know, these workers, when it's solved, will get the money back. But if this one goes 35 days like the last, it leaves a lot of workers, some even military, in tough spots. How will both sides look at that as this draws out and plays out a little longer?
I agree, especially our military. These folks are literally putting their lives on the line for us, including my son, for that matter. But this is why we should never shut the government down. Chuck Schumer, as you know, 13 times during the Biden years said, we're going to keep the government open and make sure we don't shut it down. Suddenly, because he's getting a lot of political pressure from the more left-wing part of his party, he thinks it's a good idea to, quote, fight Trump. This isn't about fighting Trump or fighting Democrats. This is about keeping the government open. People have paid for these services. They deserve to get their services. We're going to continue to do that in my office, and I hope that the Senate follows the House's lead of keeping the government open.
Yeah, let's hope this is a quick resolution. We'll see as both sides kind of dig their heels in. Congressman, always appreciate your time. Thanks for the insight.
Thank you, Ryan.
That is Republican Congressman Mike Haridopolos representing the 8th District. Now, to get the latest updates on the shutdown, remember the last one went 35 days. Fox35Orlando.com, one of many places you can go. You can use your phone, get the free Fox Local app.